They dipped lower to the ground, and Sara ducked when something small whizzed past her head and hit one of the wolves squarely between the eyes. It fell to the ground unable to move. The projectile was followed by several others, each finding its mark with deadly accuracy, felling one wolf after another. There was a small grove of trees behind the pack that suddenly uprooted itself and rolled on the ground, crushing several more of the animals as they stood too stunned to move. Sara turned to look at Thomas, who was leaned forward on his lure staring at the wolves with such a look of anger that she was taken aback by the sheer force of it. They landed in the area about 50 feet from the small group who had by now thrown themselves to the ground, using their bodies to protect whatever lay behind them from the flying rocks. As their group touched the ground, the earth beneath them began to shake. The dirt rippled and buckled under their feet, and it was difficult to stay in a standing position. Sara and the others ran toward the small gathering, but moving became increasingly difficult as the constant motion of the ground became more violent. Sara saw Oli stop suddenly and turn to Thomas. She ran to join the two of them and placed her hand on Thomas's trembling arm. His body was stiff and he still had a look of rage on his handsome face. He didn't seem to be focused on the damage that was being done to the land around them or the danger that faced the people there with them. What had started as an attempt to save the group from the wolves had become a full all-out assault on everything in the area, and it was getting worse. She felt a large hand grab hers and instinctively reached out and placed it on Thomas's arm. A bright red glow spread out from around the three of them. She saw Thomas blink and look at her as if he had just emerged from a trance, and he smiled at her as the world around them slowly stopped shaking. She was aware of Oli gripping her hand tightly for a second more before he stepped over toward the group behind them. Sara started to follow when she noticed that Alice had approached Thomas from his other side and had been holding his hand while she and Oli were helping him to regain control. Thomas studied her with a puzzled look on his face. She blushed and let go of his hand, stepping back quickly before running to join the others. "Who was that?" Thomas asked. "That's Alice," Sara answered. "I'll explain later. Let's check on James and the others." They hurried back to the small group, now huddled in a semicircle around the object on the ground. After a quick glance at the people standing there, Sara recognized James' adopted father and two of his brothers. They were standing with their heads bowed and tears streaming down their faces. "Where's James?" Sara said, suddenly aware of the utter silence surrounding them. There was no longer the sound of James's enchanting flute playing its magical tunes.